Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday. A bit of a different setting today. Been quite busy. Decided to pick a Sunday and film a couple of episodes simply because, if you remember last Tuesday, I couldn't get an episode out on time. I ended up going live instead. So let's dive right into it. First question comes from, well, really not a question, more of a discussion that I had with a gentleman by the name of Pal Q on via email. We went back and forth with a few emails. He writes, "Thank you so much for your kind reply and education. I've gained a lot of useful knowledge as a graduate in finance. I've come across the concept of alternative investments. And in one of my courses, I do see many benefits that passion assets, as you dubbed it, such as fine wine, arts, jewelry, and of course luxury watches, as an interesting asset class. Despite having other great traditional investment assets such as stocks and bonds, etc., they're often tied to financial market too much. As investments mostly follow the rule of don't put all your eggs in one basket, alternative assets may often be a great opportunity to diversify the overall portfolio, as they are often less correlated to the financial market. In addition, physical assets are often better hedge tools against inflation, which traditional assets usually perform worse in that perspective. I have attached a brochure from a fine wine investment company that has provided analysis as one of the passion assets. As a wine expert yourself, I hope this may speak some ideas for you. Thank you again for the great conversation." We went back and forth a few times kind of discussing this topic, but the reason I mentioned this is I wanted to bring up the concept of passion assets, right? And again, to go back to me always saying that watches are not an investment. And the biggest point that I brought forth to Pal was the fact that yes, it is indeed true. It's good to diversify your investments in many different areas, and you could do that with a decent watch portfolio. In fact, over the last couple of months, I've had quite a few of you guys that reached out to me and said that, look, now that the market is down, where can I park some of my money? I pointed majority of guys to the vintage market, and not simply because the prices have dipped on a few pieces a little bit, just like they did across the market, but simply because in times like this, what you end up seeing is not, oh, this particular GMT just dropped in price 20%. What you're seeing is you're seeing the most pristine and the rarest example of vintage stuff come out on a market. And one gentleman actually wanted to park a significant amount of money in these watches. And I sent him a proposal of all these vintage pieces showing the pre-corona price, post-corona price. But at the same token, I told him, I said, you never know what can happen. And again, it's a good investment so long as you sell in time, meaning that I'm going to sell you these pieces. You're going to hang on to them. And I'm going to call you and say, it's time to sell that watch. It's time to sell this watch at a profit, right? Him having me by his side makes it somewhat an investment, but still you never know, the market could crash, or some corona number 2 can come out, or COVID 20, I guess, whatever you want to call it, and you never know what can happen. The key difference between this type of investing, as I call it, into these passion assets, as Powell Q dubbed it, is the fact that yes, there are 10 times better investments. There's many more opportunities in the stock market today. There are so many companies trading under value right now that you could pick up on the stock market that would make for a better investment. But the key difference is with these watches, investing, let's say, XYZ dollars into a package of watches today, seemingly at a better deal than 6 months ago, allows you to actually play with those assets. How much fun can one have with his stock portfolio? You can't take out your stock, put it on your wrist, enjoy it, etc., right? Hence, they can be dubbed passion assets because you actually are investing into your passion. You get to play with these watches, and when it's time to sell, you sell them, you actually can make a return, right? And the more different pieces you buy, the more diversified you are. Rather than investing money, let's say, into $1 million watch, you can invest $1 million into 20 different watches, diversifying that portfolio within, so to speak. But to go back to the fact that these are passion assets, 9 out of 10 times what happens is these investors or collectors that buy these things, they don't sell it in time. And the market goes up and down and up and down and up and down. And usually what ends up happening, especially when these collectors see the prices climb, they're saying to themselves, wait a minute, I bought this watch for $1, it's already at $3, I'm tripling my money, it should go up further, right? But no, if you're doing this strictly as an investment, you find an opportune time to buy, just like with any other investment, decide, is this a long-term investment or is this a short-term investment? And if this is a short-term investment, the minute this asset goes up, let's say 10, 20%, that's when you actually sell it. Long-term, a lot of watches out there can indeed give you a good return. Vintage Pateks, vintage Rolex, vintage APs. some vintage Tag Heuers, Breitlinks, etc., right? And simply because they're just already very, very old. So let's say my original 5402, not wearing a watch, my original 5402, let's say, from 1872, which is already almost 50 years old. 50 years from now, odds are it will be worth even a lot more money. But then if you do the math, that today that watch is trading 65 to 70,000, right? Take that $70,000 today, stick it in the stock market, buy Apple stock. I always use Apple stock as an example, but irrelevant. 50 years from now, that Apple stock will be still worth a heck of a lot more money than this 5402. But short term, there could be some gains, and that's why I do sometimes say there are exceptions to the rule. But keep in mind, the gentleman that wanted to put together this vintage portfolio, he has me to put it together for him at the right prices, and he also has me calling him, let's say a month from now, or a year from now, telling him, hey, it's time to sell 3 out of the 5 watches that you purchased because the margins are already there. And at the same token, I am making money as I'm selling these watches to him initially, and I'm also going to take a small profit as I'm selling it on the exit side. So, I'm still playing the broker, and I'm still making my margins on both ends. Maybe not as much as I normally would if I were to sell a single watch, but again, that's just the case. So that's why I wanted to bring up these so-called passion assets. I'm the number one victim of what me and Powell had a discussion about. I like wine. By no means am I a wine expert of any sort. I do know a thing or two about wine simply from experience, but I am the biggest victim of this. I have wines in my cellar that since I have bought them had tripled and quadrupled in value, but you're not going to see me sell them. And that's usually the case 9 out of 10 times with any kind of a passion investment, which is why to say that you're diversifying is fair, but to say that it's a true investment, it's not. Because if I bought a bottle of wine 10 years ago and it cost me $800, and that same bottle of wine today is $4,000, I would rather drink it than to sell it and take the profit, and I hope that kind of makes sense. For the most part, people end up taking profits on their passion assets when they actually need the money, whether they need it because of their financial hardship, and not necessarily because they're in the financial hardship, but because perhaps they're looking to make another purchase. And usually that purchase is within that same passion asset. So hope that shines a little more light in watches as investments into the discussion that I've had since I've opened up this YouTube channel. And Pal, thanks so much for reaching out to me. I really enjoyed our conversation via email. Quick mention to a Peter Story. Peter Story sent me over a handmade jewelry board before Corona started. In fact, a lot of you guys have been sending stuff into my office, whether to review it, whether to get a mention and things of that nature. I'll repeat it again. I don't mind you guys sending me stuff, so long as it has something to do with the watch and jewelry business, and as long as it has a good story about it. I get multiple offers from multiple companies out there to plug cheaper watches, to plug certain products. Most of these offers are from agencies that find influencers online to plug that type of product. I delete all of those emails, but much like the watch stand, right? I like the story behind that. I like the fact that, it was a basement operation, much like mine, that blew up to be something much, much bigger. And that's why I plug the watch stand. I'm not looking to get paid for anything that I plug. As long as you got a good story behind a product that's related to the watch and jewelry industry, feel free to reach out to me or mail something into my office address, which is available online, and I'll gladly review it. But Peter, I apologize with all this Corona stuff. I haven't had a chance to put your product online. I promise you I will over the next few weeks, and I'll do a segment of mail time once I collect a few things to talk about. Next question from a gentleman named Gennaro. Morning, Roma. Hope as well. With what we're faced today, I've been following you for some time now, and being an older gentleman introduced to the world of YouTube from my children, find you to be quite interesting when it comes to this passion of watches. Thank you. I caught the bug last year when my brother-in-law finally got me to realize how intriguing this hobby can be. The history, beauty, pure pleasure that a simple watch can bring, it's amazing. Now moving forward and being a newbie to the game, I'm green when it comes to the actual value or good value on some of these higher end watches. Following you, I see that you're an old school, down to earth, no nonsense, tell it like it is person type of dude, and I can appreciate that. So I have my eye on AP, just love them, but obviously they're ridiculously expensive. I saw a video when you went into going older to obtain the brand you like so that it may be more attainable. It's purely an emotional buy, but I don't want my emotions getting the best of me. This could be, as of now, my most expensive buy. Sweating just thinking about it. I'm a numbers guy, but watches make me crazy. I want to be responsible, especially now. However, it can't hurt to look. When and how and where will I know that that's a good deal price? Thanks so much, Roman. I appreciate the feedback and keep up the good work with the channel. Well, thanks again. Long question, but very, very short answer. You actually kind of described an answer in some of your questions. This happens often as you guys write these questions. You tend to have the answer right there in front of you. You don't really need me to answer your question. But one of the things that you wrote in here, my brother-in-law got me to realize how intriguing this hobby can be, the history, the beauty, and pure pleasure that a simple watch can bring. It's amazing. And this is where I tell everybody, and I'm going to tell you the same thing. Don't get caught up in how much money you're spending. I know it's tough for a numbers guy, but if you are a numbers guy, it actually should be a lot easier for you. You know what you're willing to spend on a watch. You know what you can afford to spend on a watch. Once you get those two factors out of the way, I can afford $10. I'm willing to spend, let's say, not $10. I'm willing to spend $8, even though I can afford 10, right? Also think to the future. Is this going to be your last watch you're going to buy? I guarantee you it's not. You may catch a watch bug. So perhaps you say to yourself, you know what? I don't want a single watch. I may want to buy myself a few watches, so don't blow your load on one watch, right? So if your total budget is $10 and you see to yourself, you know what? I really would like to own a few watches. Don't think about the numbers. Think about where you're going to be. Think about what you're looking to get. Are you looking to diversify in terms of what kind of complications you have in the watch, what kind of metal a watch may be across brands, vintage versus new, etc., etc.? Then you set an overall budget and you say to yourself, you know what? I am going to now budget for 3 watches over the next year. And again, as a numbers guy, this should be fairly easy to you. But for the most part, concentrate on exactly what you wrote, okay? History, beauty, and pure pleasure that a simple watch can bring. If you do that, that will remove all the anxiety from everything else. Yes, decide on a number first and foremost in terms of affordability and what you're willing to spend. But for the most part, concentrate on the pure pleasure that a watch can bring an individual or multiple watches. That's my best advice to you. As far as getting a good deal, when and how, there is no such thing, right? If you think about it, if you think in terms of the margins that majority of dealers out there work on, anywhere from 5 to say 20%, right? Well, there's your up and down side. You don't have to be an expert to understand if somebody's trying to price gouge you, right? By simply Googling the watch, right? I mean, I do this till this day when I buy things from dealers. I was looking at a vintage Breitling the other day. On one of my chats, the dealer was asking $6,500 for the watch. It was a Breitling made for the Iraqi Air Force, right? I had an emblem in the back of the watch. And the guy was asking $6,000. I haven't traded that watch ever, I don't think. Or maybe I had 1 or 2 similar ones. And to me, it seemed like a reasonable price. I simply went on Chrono 24. I've been in business 17 years, but I still simply went on Google. First listing popped up on Chrono 24, and the watch was up there for $5,500 while the guy was asking $6,000. So I quickly offered $3,800 for the watch, thinking I can go up to $4,000. Didn't make the deal. But long story short, it's very easy to see if somebody's charging a high price. And they may not necessarily be charging a high price because they want to price gouge you. They may be charging you a high price simply because they own the watch hard. The market may have shifted. There are many reasons to it. But the pricing factor, the when and the how, the right time to buy is when you're ready to buy a watch. As far as your price, it'll fluctuate 5 to 10%. That's really the worst it's going to get. Here's a really good one from King's Trumper. The minute I read King Trumper challenges in the subject line, I actually didn't read the question because I think this makes it that much more fun. Hey Roman, hope all is well with you and your family. It's safe in these crazy times. I have 5 questions for you that escalate in toughness. Okay. Number 1, choose between Spectre Omega or No Time to Die Omega. Easy, no time to die. Number 2, choose between one watch which you can have unlimited strap options for, rubber, NATOs, etc., or any watch you want but never being able to change the strap. Okay, that got a little harder. So one watch which you can have unlimited strap options for. Well, the one watch I would have unlimited strap options for would be a Rolex, for example. My single red sea dweller, right? I can put that on a strap, NATO strap, rubber strap. There's a multitude of aftermarket accessories available for pretty much any Rolex. It would have to be a single watch. I can't really go with AP. That sucks because AP doesn't really have unlimited options when it comes to that. Well, I should say they do. I mean, a Royal Oak does have a lot of aftermarket accessories, but let's just stick with Rolex. If I were to pick one Rolex, it would be a gold Paul Newman Daytona, and it has many variations, but it would be one of those. Number 3, choose between only having watches up to include 40 millimeters only, or only having watches 41 millimeters and over. Due to my wrist size, I can handle a 41 millimeter watch, and I do like bulkier watches. The issue with 41 millimeter over is it cuts off a lot of vintage stuff, so I would have to go 40 millimeters and under, because this could give me modern watches as well as vintage watches. Unfortunately, not a whole lot of vintage stuff out there over 41 millimeters. Number 4, choose between watches from 1960 to 2000 or only having watches from 2000 till today. As much as I love vintage and everything else, I would hate to cut myself off at the year 2000 because I don't know what year 2030 is going to bring. So I'm going to go with 2000 and out, just because the world of horology is changing so fast, and there's so many new innovations out there from independent guys as well as the big boys. I would hate to cut myself off from what the future has to bring. And again, I love vintage, but I'm not the core vintage guy. I love all watches, right? So it would be 2000 to today or going forward, I'm assuming. And number 5, choose between wearing AP only as it's your favorite or being allowed to wear any other brand but not AP. That's tough. I mean, yes, AP is indeed my favorite brand, but that's a tough one. I don't know. So I'm not allowed to wear my favorite brand, but if I do wear only my favorite brand, I'm missing out on the 1,000 different brands out there. I think I would have to bite the bullet here and not wear my favorite brand, but at least be able to wear 1,000 other brands that are out there. Yeah, that's terrible. That's a terrible question. I hate that question. Anyway, last time you answered my questions, you gave a shout out to my fiance Laura Ann, and she was really happy as she was a complete surprise. So maybe you could give her another shout out. You never know, could lead to the first Q&A Tuesday, baby. It's funny. Well, Laura Ann, I thank you for watching my videos all the time. So a big shout out to you once again. I don't have many female followers, and obviously you're one of them, and I appreciate the very few that I have. So thank you so much for watching my videos alongside your significant other. I don't know what his name is. King's Trumper, I'm assuming, is not your real name. But other than that, big shout out to Laura Ann once again. Got a couple of questions from a gentleman named Raju Doshi. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Hey Ram, I'm a huge fan, love the content, especially genuine and honest content. Thank you. I had emailed you a while ago selling some of our Rolex collection. Thank you, agent, for helping me with quick notes. I decided to hold on to them for now given the current turmoil. Question number 1, with the last few economic cycles, dot-com bust, Great Recession, and now COVID-19 turmoil, can we learn something about watch sales from past recessions? As for how long and how much did the prices drop from its peak? Realizing it's not going to repeat exactly the same, but as they say, history is a good guide to future. Is there usually a case where some brands will come out hot and hype, predicting from past scenario? Rolex Pateks have always been in demand in modern history, but for example, Panerai after dot-com bust, anything you predict there? That's how Panerai may have built up steam during bad times and the hype blew up when the economy was more stable. Any brands on a track to do the same? That's a question that cannot be answered because there are too many variables to the issue. So the last thing I personally went through was the 08 crisis. And now we have the COVID crisis. Two are not the same. A lot of you guys have mentioned that the COVID crisis seems to be worse than 08 crisis. I don't think it is, at least keeping the content off the watch industry because I'm there hands-on every day still doing business and still doing good business. So it's definitely not the same. The key difference between 08 and the COVID crisis is in 08 everything stopped and it stopped dead, right? Like for 2 months it was just dead. No phone calls, not a lot of purchases, not a lot of buying, not a lot of selling, right? Even the B2B. Today, it's a little bit different. The wheel hasn't really stopped. People got scared, but the wheel didn't really stop. Plus, the difference in 08 and today is the amount of people that are in the watch industry. In 08, there weren't a lot of guys like me out there. There wasn't that big of a secondary market as there is today. So another key difference there. As far as brands, yeah, seemingly Patek survived the storm and seemed to be the brand that kept on selling. But however, which models, right? The Nautilus hype back prior to 08 wasn't as great as it was before COVID, number one. The hype stuff that was hot before 08 was your complicated stuff, your annual calendars, your perpetual calendar chronos, right? The more dressier stuff, the more complicated stuff from Patek, where before COVID, Patek was synonymous with just Nautilus and Aquanaut, right? There was nobody out there paying over list for 5204 split second chronograph perpetual, right? Where back before 08, the 500 for his predecessor was trading through the roof, upwards of $300,000 and $400,000, right, depending on the dials and combinations. Where today you can't give away a 5204 for 50 grand under list, right? So it's all about different times. It's all about different trends. It's all about a market that is much different. Usually these type of economic crises, let's double them that, right? They don't happen every year, right? So last was 08, now it's 2020. It's been 12 years. A lot changes in 12 years. So it's very hard to foresee, pinpoint a brand, pinpoint a model. Yes, you may get the brand right, but it might be completely different models. You may get the model right that drops in value, but then the other models pick up. and you just never know. To think that a long future where the opportunities might lie today, Corona or not, is some of the independent stuff, right? Because they make very, very little of them. I think that's going to be a future collectibles. But that's just my opinion. MBNF may not be around 20 years from now, or Urbic for that matter, but because they're so different, because they make so few and the market is so small, logically I'm saying to myself, you know what, if I pick up a few of the original Urbics, the very, very first ones they made, which trade very low right now, 20, 30 years from now, perhaps these will be the collectibles, but there's no guarantee. That's why I always say buy what appeals to you. It doesn't really matter what's going to happen long term. Now, with so many companies like even Bon Marché having in-house movements, a modern watch is going to be even harder to collect. I mean, one of the pros of vintage watches is their movements are very easily serviceable. Velouge 72, used by so many different brands, chronographs. With modern in-house movements, I just feel like these companies are like car companies. Hard to take many of them to your mom and pop mechanic shop. You are forced to go to a dealership for the special parts. I specialize in their products that they are insurance service business too. These watch companies market it as providing customers with something exclusive in guise of ensuring more money in the future. I understand exceptions, some micro brands who are just brilliantly innovative and engineering in their movements. You said it. I may have even discussed this before, and I saw another video. Caseback Watches is the channel that I watched, right? There was a video there where he discussed in detail that indeed these watch manufacturers are gouging with these services, and they're doing exactly what the car manufacturer is doing. Because look, once the watch is sold to you, there's really no other way for them to make money on it outside of doing service on it. And do I believe in conspiracy theory? No. Can a company technically make a movement up to a certain standard where 3-4 years from now it does require that service no matter what, and only they can do it because they can give you the genuine parts? Absolutely, but that would be a conspiracy theory. But for the most part, what you said is correct. These watch manufacturers now, they want that service business, because once they sell you a $5,000 Omega, how much more money can they make off of that watch? So they give you a mini service, and then a 5-year service, and a mini service in between, and lo and behold, your $5,000 Omega in 5 to 7 years becomes a $10,000 Omega, right? Or an $8,000 Omega. Can I blame them for doing it? No, it is a business move, but indeed they are doing that. But I told you guys before, these services, these mini services, you don't need to do them at the manufacturer's level. There are plenty of talented local watchmakers that can do the job for a few $100s. The only difference is you won't get a piece of paper that says, oh, my watch was served at Rolex or Omega for that matter, right? Well, I shouldn't say Rolex. Rolex is actually very reasonable in service. It's everybody else. It's pretty expensive. As I mentioned earlier, my single red sub, right? That watch is as old as I am. It's 45 years old. When I did the Aruba video during New Year's, I posted that video a while back. If you guys didn't see it, check it out. I swam with that watch. I wear that watch every day on the beach, in the sand. I haven't serviced that watch since I've got it, and it's been more than 10 years since I got it. I don't know the history prior to that. I didn't get any service records with it. I'm assumed it was serviced somewhere, but for the most part, I didn't have a service paper for it. I just have regular papers. So more than 10 years, a 45-year-old watch, swimming, jumping around, wearing every single day, wearing it in the sand, and yet it keeps on ticking, keeps good time. Am I going to service it? No. When it stops, I'll service it. But a lot of these watches are a lot more durable than you think. So don't go panicking about servicing your watches. And if you do want to service your watch, look for a local option, which will save you 70 to 80% off the cost, minus the paper from the manufacturer. Hope that helps. Take one more from Leslie Williams. Quick one for you. What did you think of the movie Uncut Gems? I suspect there's a lot of characters like the one played by Adam Sandler around the Diamond District. Have you any good stories, and what is your view on black opals? Couldn't really give you a view on black opals. Standalone gems and stones and diamonds and things of that nature is not our specialty. Well, of course, we have plenty of jewelry with opals, diamonds, rubies, etc. But for the most part, we specialize in ready-made jewelry. Yes, do I fill calls on diamonds when somebody needs an engagement ring? Sometimes I do, but for the most part, we specialize in ready jewelry. As far as Uncut Gems, to tell you the truth, I didn't get through the whole movie.
Give me another shot.
It didn't necessarily have anything to do with the fact that I couldn't relate to some of the stories that are there. I just didn't like the movie, to be honest. There were a lot of scenes in the movie which could relate to the Diamond District on 47th, just as it really is. So a lot of the stuff that was portrayed there that you saw, it actually does take place on 47th Street. It's based on true-like events, I should say, right? There's a gentleman in there by the name of Greg Una that plays in that particular movie. He is from 47th Street. He's formerly the guy known as Mr. Flawless. Now he's known as Greg Una ever since he left his uncle's shop to open up his own thing, blah, 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 right? And I would imagine as they were doing this movie, they consulted with guys like Greg Una. They consulted with guys on 47th Street. They went out there and they did their research to bring you forth as realistic of a portrayal as possible whenever the scenes that took place on 47th Street took place. Things like borrowing money, things like loaning on certain goods, that takes place all day, every day on 47th Street. Now, the fact that this guy was a gambling degenerate is a whole different story, right? But the idea of, particular dealers taking some of their goods, giving it to somebody that is just sitting there doing nothing for them, taking money, using that money to buy something else, that happens all day, every day. But overall, I thought the movie sucked, and I didn't even finish watching it, I'll be honest with you. I want to take one more from Ryan. Roman, quick question about clear casebacks. Almost every watch brand offers some models with a clear caseback except for Rolex. Why does Rolex not offer this, and do you think they'll ever will in the future? The answer is fairly simple. For one, I don't think they'll ever offer a clear back in the future, but the Rolex Oyster case was made to be a tool watch, a rugged watch, a diving watch, a watch that can withstand a lot. There's an old saying, I don't know whose it is, but I say it all the time, at least maybe it's just mine. You can take a Rolex, throw it against the wall, it'll keep on ticking for you. It's a very rugged tool watch. That's what the watch was made to be, and that's why there was no clear back. And besides, have you seen a Rolex movement? Ian, pop a few in. Really not much to look at. You look at a beautifully designed Breguet or AP, a hand-decorated movement, rotor, or something of that nature. There's something to see. There's not a whole lot to see. Put a clear case back onto a Rolex watch. So I hope that answers your question. You know what? I think I have time for one more from Bilal. Hi Roman, highly appreciate the content. All of that without auto cue. Not sure what auto cue is, but you're definitely the real deal. In between watching your vids, I saw a bunch of videos of producer Michael buying these Jacob and companies, right? Although he gets a proper discount, would he not be better off buying a pre-owned Jacob since the depreciation on these things tend to be massive? Pause. Kind regards from Amsterdam. P.S. Shout out to, I don't know how to pronounce that name. Shout out to Mauya. Mauya? I hope I got that right. Anyway, he is Bilal's kid brother and a fellow watch fanatic, so shout out to him, and I apologize if I'm angled his name. So is producer Michael better off buying these watches pre-owned? Yes, of course, you're better off buying pretty much every watch pre-owned because it's going to be cheaper. But there are some people out there that won't touch pre-owned. It's just the way it is. I've had plenty of clients that I can sell them a watch for 30 grand brand new and tell them, look, here's a pre-owned one for 25. They won't go. They will buy a new watch only. Some people are superstitious of wearing other people's watches. Some people look at it as simply buying somebody's used pair of jeans or sneakers, right? They don't want to wear something after somebody else. At the end of the day, this watch does go on your wrist, and there are many people out there, even though I tell them, look, I'll make the watch brand new, give you a brand new strap, and blah, blah, they don't care. They just want it new, and they consciously understand that the watch 9 out of 10 times is going to lose its value the minute they put it on the wrist, but that's just their prerogative. Michael may very well be one of those people. Michael also has a relationship with Jacob Arabo, so he feels obligated buying those watches from him, and even though he can save a buck or two, he still will buy that watch directly from Jacob because it gives him, I'm sure it gives him tremendous satisfaction to be able to sit in the same room as Jacob Arabo and actually buy those watches directly from him, right? But yeah, he would be better off buying them used. They would be a lot cheaper. It certainly makes sense. Well guys, I'm going to cut this one off here. I want to thank you for joining me on this Q&A Tuesday. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber to my channel, and most importantly, hit that share button because this is what helps my channel grow organically, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Try it around. There we go.